Siddhenyatharte nayateta tatra Parishramam tatra samikshamanah Atha kavi nama suyavadartha Syad pramato vyavasaya buddhihi Siddhena tarthi natyateta tatra Parishramam tatra samikshamanah
Atha kavir nama suyavadartha Syada pramato vyavasaya buddhihi Siddhenyatharte nayateta tatra Parishramam tatra samikshamanah Atha kavir nama suyavadartha Syada pramato vyavasaya buddhihi Siddhenyatharte nayateta tatra Parishramam tatra samikshamanah Atha kavir nama suyavadartha Syada pramato vyavasaya buddhihi Siddhenyatharte nayateta tatra Parishramam tatra samikshamanah Atha kavir nama suyavadartha Syada pramato vyavasaya buddhihi Siddhenyatharte nayateta tatra Parishramam tatra samikshamanah
Okay, Matajis.
Syada pramato vyavasaya buddhihi
Tartha Tatra samikshamanah Tatra samikshamanah Atha kave nama sukayavadartha Javamartha buddhi Siddhenyatharte nayateta tatra Okay. Ataha, for this reason, Kavihi, the enlightened person, Namasu, in names only, Yavat, minimum, Arthaha, necessary, Syat, must be, Apramattaha, without being mad after them, Vyavasyaya buddhihi, intelligently fixed, Siddhi, for success, Anyatha, otherwise, Arthe, in the interest of, Na, should never, Yateta, endeavor for, Tatra, there, Parishramam, laboring hard, Tatra, where, there, Samikshamanaha, one who sees practically. Okay, translation. And purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. For this reason, the enlightened persons should endeavor only for the minimum necessities of life while in the world of names. He should be intelligently fixed and never endeavor for unwanted things, being competent to perceive practically that all such endeavors are merely hard labor for nothing. Purport. Bhagavad Dharma, or the cult of Srimad Bhagavatam, is perfectly distinct from the way of fruitive activities, which are considered by the devotees to be merely a waste of time. The whole universe, or for that matter, all material existence is moving on as Jagat, simply for planning business to make one's position very comfortable or secure. Although everyone sees that his existence is neither comfortable nor secure, and can never become comfortable or secure at any stage of development. Those who are captivated by the illusory advancement of material civilization, following the way of phantasmagoria, are certainly madmen. The whole material creation is a jugglery of names only. In fact, it is nothing but a bewildering creation of matter like earth, water, and fire. The buildings, furniture, cars, bungalows, mills, factories, industries, peace, war, or even the highest perfection of material science, namely atomic energy and electronics, are all simply bewildering names of material element with their concomitant reactions of the three modes. Since the devotees of the Lord know them perfectly well, He is not interested in creating unwanted things for a situation which is not at all reality, but simply names of no more significance than the babbles of sea waves. What does babbles exactly mean? Anybody know what babbles means? I mean, I can see in the context, but like...
I only know it in the context.
Yeah. Maybe somebody can look that up.
Yeah, sound.
Sound.
Sorry, I was guessing that.
Oh yeah, when you sit next to the waves and like crashing and... Okay. The great kings, leaders, and soldiers fight with one another in order to perpetuate their names in history. They are forgotten in due course of time, and they make a place for another era in history. But the devotee realizes how much history and history persons are useless products of flickering time. The fruitive worker aspires after a big fortune in the matter of wealth, women, and worldly adoration, but those who are fixed in perfect reality are not at all interested in such false things. For them it is all a waste of time. Since every second of human life is important, an enlightened man should be careful to utilize time very cautiously. One second of human life wasted in the vain search of planning for happiness in the material world can never be replaced, even if one spends millions of coins of gold. Therefore, the transcendentalist desiring freedom from the clutches of Maya or the illusory activities of life is warned here with not to be captivated by the external features of the fruitive actors. Human life is never meant for sense gratification, but for self-realization. Srimad Bhagavatam instructs us solely on this subject from the very beginning to the end. Human life is simply meant for self-realization. The civilization which aims at this utmost perfection never indulges in creating unwanted things, and such a perfect civilization prepares man only to accept the bare necessity of life or to follow the principles of the best use of a bad bargain. Our material bodies and our lives in that connection are bad bargains, because the living entities is actually spirit, and spiritual advancement of living entities is absolutely necessary. Human life is intended for self-realization of this important factor, and one should act accordingly, accepting only the bare necessities of life and depending more on God's gifts without diversion of human energy for any other purpose, such as being mad for material enjoyment. The materialistic advancement of civilization is called the civilization of the demons, which ultimately ends in war and scarcity. The transcendentalist is specifically warned herewith to be fixed in mind, so that even if there is difficulty in plain living and high thinking, he will not budge even an inch from his stark determination. For a transcendentalist, it is suicidal policy to be intimately in touch with the sense gratifiers of the world, because such a policy will frustrate the ultimate gain of life. Wow. Sukadeva Goswami met Maharaj Parikshit when the latter felt a necessity for such a meeting. It is the duty of a transcendentalist to help persons help persons who desire real salvation and to support the cause of salvation. One should note that Shukadeva Goswami never met Maharaj Parikshit while he was ruling as a great king. For a transcendentalist, the mode of activities is explained in the next shloka. Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalaka Chakshurunitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitamena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapatakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vijakan Vitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagadpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchina Gaurangi Adhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakapadarvishya Kripasindhya Vachapatitanam Pavinibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah. Okay. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prusthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vikas Swami Nityanamine. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prusthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine. Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Pashatya Desatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jnanananda Mayam Devam Nirmal Spratikakritim Adar Sarva Vidyanam Hayagrivam Upasmahe. Okay, sorry, my phone's freaking out a little bit. So now we get into this whole amazing section of the Srimad Bhagavatam where Shukadeva Goswami starts to chastise the way of living. Why should one endeavor for such a big, house and bed and so much material necessities? This is all nonsense. And this is some of my personal favorite set of verses. How he goes on to describe all these things, that one should not be too much captivated by this material energy. So Shukadeva Goswami, he's starting to give this process or giving the knowledge of how one should live in this world, how one should, what one's intelligence should be fixed on and what one should not do. Because this is very much required in giving absolute knowledge, is that, you tell them what to do, but you also got to tell them, most of it is you have to tell them what not to do also. It's like, you may tell someone you chant Hare Krishna, but that's all you tell them. And then on the side, they're eating meat and going to the movies and doing everything. Absolutely useless. So we'll see here throughout this next couple of, within this chapter, how Shukadeva Goswami, he's giving us this understanding of simple living and higher thinking. And Srila Prabhupada is very much emphasizing that point within this purport of that, how one should not be absorbed in the externals of life, that by arthamanina, that the mind should not be absorbed in acquiring the comforts of life, because comforts or security of life. Because actually the Bhagavatam tells us that this human form of life is very, it's rarely obtained and is very fragile by nature. It's very fragile. It can end at any moment, or some situation, unfortunate situation may come about at any moment, and it's over for us. The endeavor for self-realization is no longer possible because of that intense desire to satisfy our material needs. So a devotee who is perfectly situated in Siddhanta and the practice, it's very important for a devotee to develop that, what is that word called? Distaste of material life, but pessimistic view of material life. This is actually a product of Krishna consciousness. Is that becoming Krishna conscious, when you become Krishna conscious, you naturally become completely against material life. And that should be seen as well, not that one takes up chanting Hare Krishna and goes on and says, actually those fruitive workers and all the people, karmis, they're also okay. This is nonsense. This means he hasn't understood Siddhanta. That means he hadn't understood the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, that one should see the material civilization as a hellish situation of life. Because even Lord Chaitanya saw it as that. And Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He stated, as Srila Prabhupada actually makes the point down the line, that I would rather burn in a cage of fire, a metal cage of fire, than associate with the materialist. So one actually should develop that, not that one endeavors for it separately and becomes hard-hearted, but that naturally comes about, that one feels, that if I associate with these people, it's much worse than burning in fire. Because we're literally throwing our human form of life away by associating with these people. Because what is their purpose in life? Eat meat, eat, sleep, be merry, enjoy, for tomorrow we shall all die. That is the whole purpose of this modern civilization. And that is the center, that sense gratification is the center of modern civilization. How can I, Ishvaroham aham bhogi, siddhoham balavan sukhi, how can I be completely the Lord of all this universe? I am the greatest enjoyer, I am the strongest of the strong. So that is the consciousness of the whole civilization. And yes, they also have vyavasya buddhi. They have fixed intelligence. The materialists have fixed intelligence. Not only we'll see here in the context is that one should have fixed intelligence in spiritual life, but the intelligence of a materialist is so completely fixed on the basis of material enjoyment, that I am the enjoyer of this world, and I deserve enjoyment, and to get that enjoyment, to get that comfort, to get that security, I'll do anything and everything. So the whole universe, or for that matter, all material existence moving in jagat, simply for planning business to make one's position very comfortable or secure. Although everyone sees that existence is neither comfortable nor secure, and can never become comfortable or secure at any stage of development. This is like the illusory energy of the Lord. It's very amazing how this idea of comfort and security is imagined in the future, although you've endeavored for your whole life, you never got it. There is some idea that eventually I'll get it. And even if you got that comfortable situation that you were after, and that security, when you get it, there's more anxiety that comes about. Because of the nature of lust and greed, Krishna explains, it burns like fire, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. So even if you get the so-called comfort and security, because what do you define as comfort and security? What do materialists define as comfort? Wealth? Well, that's security. Absence of discomfort. Sure, that's what comfort means. He's just giving me the definition of comfort. A nice bed, right? A nice bed, a nice house, a nice car. That's comfort, because if you can travel in your Lamborghini, and you can travel in your Jeep or your Mercedes and then you can come home to a nicely, houses that have those doors that are that's shut by themselves, and then they live in a neighborhood that has security guards, and your house is full of security cameras. You can come home to this security, but these people are most of the time most in anxiety. They're trying to secure their existence. I mean, that's what it is, as Srila Prabhupada says in the introduction, that we're trying to experience a permanent level of, now we're functioning as permanent beings in an impermanent world. That's not exactly what he says, but I'm trying to paraphrase. That therefore there is anxiety, because we're trying to come to a level of comfort, but the nature of this existence is it's neither comfortable nor secure at any stage. Like, you can have the greatest physician try to treat you of your disease, but he can't save you. He can't save you. No matter, you can be the billionaire in this world, and you can hire all the researchers to cure the disease that you have, but they can't save you, because you have to understand the nature of this existence is that it's dukhala, that what is this word that Krishna uses in the Bhagavad Gita? Lokam, what is this? He uses the word lokam, that this world is just full of misery. Yeah, anityam asukam anityam asukam lokam. That this world is anitya, temporary, therefore it's not secure, and asukam, it's always full of miseries. And that's the nature of it. So this endeavor to try to satisfy the body is completely useless. It's completely this contradictory to, like I often say, it's like trying to make water dry and calling that water. It's like I can have dry water. It's stupidity. But how does that stupidity take place? Because of the fixed intelligence. Because the intelligence is not meant to allow stupidity, right? Because intelligence is meant to, give you logic and ability to function so that you don't do dumb things. But the problem is that the intelligence is fixed on that, on a material platform. Therefore, it sees this comfort and security of life as all in all. And that sense of illusion is there, that it will come, it will come, it will come, it will come. Even an old man who's about to die, he endeavors for comfort and security. Although every time he moves his finger, there's extreme pain. And he knows that at any point he can die, but he still tries to amass wealth, still tries to hire so many guards and so many health insurances. Why? Because of the illusory nature of this world, that one can become comfortable. That is the energy of the Lord, which is allowing such things to go on. So those who are captivated by the illusory advancement of material civilization, following the way of phantasmagoria, are certainly madmen. The whole material creation is jugglery of names only. In fact, it is nothing but a bewildering creation of matter, like earth, water, and fire. The buildings, furniture, cars, bungalows, mills, factories, industries, peace, war, even the highest perfection of material science, namely atomic energy and electronics, are simply bewildering names of material elements with their concomitant reactions of three modes. If you read in the Bhagavatam through Kapila Dev's, some of the teachings that he gives, he discusses this, how all these things, at base, basically we're talking here in Sankhya philosophy, it's all atoms. It's actually, at the end of the day, it's just a different combination of earth, water, and fire. So, but there is attachment there, and that development of attachment is purely done on the level of me, myself, and I. And that I am the enjoyer of all these things. So a person who is not in knowledge of these things, because he has no higher knowledge, he completely fixes his mind, his intelligence into this subject matter. And therefore, because of him fixing the intelligence, just like a moth, the Bhagavatam describes a moth flies into the fire thinking it to be very wonderful. The materialist also does the same thing. He willingly throws himself into the fire thinking that it is very beautiful, it is very wonderful. But he's so foolish that he doesn't realize that it's burning him alive. So, since the devotee of the Lord knows them perfectly well, he's not interested in creating unwanted things for a situation, which is not at all reality, but simply names of no more significance than the babbles of sea waves. The great kings, leaders, and soldiers fight with one another. in order to perpetuate their names in history. They are forgotten in due course of time, and they make a place for another era in history. But the devotee realizes how much history and historical persons are useless products of flickering time. The fruit of workers aspire after a big fortune in the matter of wealth, women, and worldly adoration. But those who are fixed in perfect reality are not at all interested in such false things. For them, it is all a waste of time. So therefore, a devotee, he should have a very pessimistic view of material life. Because what is the use of gaining name and fame and all this in this society? Because everything is taken away by time. But just one can appreciate Krishna's energy in this way also. How we've seen time and time again, no matter how big your name is, it all disappears. Even Einstein will disappear now because his theory has been proved wrong, that he was actually wrong, he wasn't correct at all. So they'll stop teaching his philosophy, and then that's it, he's gone, taken away by time. Even the greatest of scientists, greatest of perpetuators of so-called philosophy, because why? Because they're fixed in imperfect reality. It's useless. It's absolutely useless. Not one single inch of use in anything in endeavoring for material life at all. Why should one do this? Why should one do this? So, but the devotee, he is fixed. He's completely fixed in the ultimate goal of life, because he has understood this point that he is a servant of the Lord. And that, by understanding that, all these other things are understood. So since every second of human life is important, an enlightened man should be very careful to utilize time very cautiously. And if you read in the Nectar Devotion, this is a quality of a pure devotee. That a pure devotee, he makes sure that all his time is completely used up in the service of the Lord. And he doesn't give even a second where he is indulging or thinking about these materialistic ways of life or how he can enjoy them. This is not there at all, because service is done on 3 levels: on the body, mind, intelligence. So all these things are, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, are the sitting place of lust, right? But the pure devotee, he uses the same 3 things which are the sitting places of lust, and he transforms that into pure devotional service. And actually, in the Bhagavatam, Kapila Dev says, actually the pure devotee is no longer dependent on the mind, the intelligence, and the body. Isn't that interesting? That is that at a certain level, the devotee completely transcends the mind. He no longer needs it, because he comes in touch with the super soul. He comes in touch with the soul itself. So the devotee, he's completely fixed in his transcendental intelligence, not material intelligence. And he completely utilizes every second that he has to hear and sing about the Lord. Constantly remembering the Lord, serving the Lord. And generally, we have to have some sort of, this is how Prabhupada says in that purport of, I wish I could bring it up, but that in that purport, Prabhupada says the devotee, he no longer needs to think about devotional service, because he just automatically engages in it. Everything he does is completely automatic. It's naturally happening. Just like in the spiritual world, anything and everything you do is completely in relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You don't have to think about it. Similarly, the Lord, the devotee, pure devotee, he no longer needs to be on this platform. He is completely fixed in just serving Krishna, because he sees that every single second, well, for him, for a pure devotee, what is time? Because he's already fixed on the goal of life. He's already fixed in full Krishna consciousness. But a devotee, he completely uses every second to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he understands this fragile nature of this human body. So every second of human life is important. An enlightened man should be very careful to utilize time very cautiously. 1 second of human life wasted in the vain research or planning for happiness in the material world can never be replaced, even if one spends millions of coins of gold. Therefore, the transcendentalist desiring from the clutches of Maya or the illusory activity of life is warned here with not to be captivated by external energies of fruitive actors. So Bhagavatam makes the point, actually, I think it might be in the beginning of this second chapter, that by the rising and the setting of the sun, one's life is completely diminished. But those who are absorbed in remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what's the last line that's there? Well, there's no such, they conquer death. So every second our life is being taken away by time. And so when one understands this point, that every second I'm running out of time, and there is that urgency in that person to endeavor for self-realization, then he's on a platform to become fully Krishna conscious, because he understands that I have this opportunity within this life to become perfect. So, because we're performing Krishna consciousness, we're desiring freedom from this material existence to a great extent. So one has to be very careful in utilizing his time. Luckily for us, within the realm of being in ashram, there's very little time, you could say, to waste in endeavoring to find the comforts of life or research for planning of happiness, although the mind tends to do that anyways. But it's practically not, because of the way we live here, the possibility of it is very little. Like, you can plan for happiness, but you can plan to have a nice car and a nice sofa, but it ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. You can plan for all these things, but it ain't gonna happen. So it remains in the mind, which one should be careful of course. And by performing devotional service, the mind becomes cleansed, and those desires should become replaced with a desire to serve Krishna on the platform of pure devotional service. But this is the beauty of engaging in full-time devotional service. Actually, I was thinking about this, I've been a full-time devotee for 4 years now. I thought about that. That's kind of contradictory to the idea of a devotee, a full-time devotee. Well, now we use it in the terms that, I don't work outside. But actually, a devotee means that he doesn't do anything else but devotional service. That's his means of living. That's his complete way of life. And so, a devotee, literally the definition of devotee is that he doesn't waste time. He doesn't waste time at all, because anything he does, even if seemingly it's like wasted time. Sometimes you're trying to do something, and let's say you're trying to set up some sort of system, some sort of cameras or something, and you set up this whole thing, and you're trying to get something going, and at the end of it you realize you didn't hit the record button, and you're oh, what do I do now? This devotee just gave a 2-hour lecture and I didn't record any of it. It's seemingly wasting time, and it's foolishness of the devotee, of course. But because that still it is directed towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it doesn't go in vain. It's not just wasted. Krishna appreciates the endeavor. Of course, that foolishness is there because of our conditioned nature. But it's not gone completely like how it would if you were a materialist. So by engaging in this full-time devotional service, you could say, or we should define the devotee as one who is fully engaged in devotional service all the time, that one can come to this level of that one is not captivated by the external features of the fruitive actors. That when we see those who are endeavoring for a material life and they have all these great things, at one point, I hope I can develop a level of disgust, just like one of our acharyas. Who's that Yamuna Acharya? That when I see sex, I spit at the thought of sex life completely. So we should, similarly, we should completely spit at the thought of becoming some great person in this world and having some great amount of money and having great amount of fame and everybody worshipping us. There should be a great distaste for that feeling. Although now we're full of it that, maybe one day I'll become some great devotee and everybody will watch me on YouTube and I'll be known as Chandan Acharya, the preacher of the whole world, and everyone will worship me as the greatest bhakta leader of all society. It's like all these thoughts should not be there. That one thought more or less should be redirected towards how can I serve the devotees, how can I expand the movement, and what do I need to do that? And independent of where the fame comes or the name comes. So that is there because of our conditioned nature from millions and millions of life, but it should be rectified by proper authority, that our authority points these things out to us. So human life is, I'm going through this a little bit quick because I only got 10 minutes left. Human life is never meant for sense gratification, but for self-realization. Srimad Bhagavatam instructs us solely on this subject from the very beginning to end. Human life is simply meant for self-realization. The civilization which aims at the utmost perfection never indulges in creating unwanted things, and such a perfect civilization prepares men only to accept bare necessity of life or to allow the principles of the best use of a bad bargain. Our material bodies and our lives in that connection are bad bargains because the living entity is actually spirit, and spiritual advancement of the living entity is absolutely necessary. Human life is intended for the realization of this important factor, and one should act accordingly, accepting only the bare necessities of life and depending more on God's gifts without diversion of human energy for any other purpose, such as being mad for material enjoyment. But the materialists see this as being a barbaric civilization. How do we know that? Because India, if we actually analyze the way that India's civilization lived, was pretty much according to this. You live on the bare necessities of life. Everything, and you live on God's wealth, basically. There's gold naturally in nature, and silver, and all these things are naturally there. But when the British came and they saw the way that these people are living, and these people are like barbarians, They're living very simply, and this is horrible, we have to change this. So that's the consciousness of a materialist. When he sees, just like they see us on the street, it's like, oh, you're a monk, oh, you don't do all these things, it's like, let me help you out, man, you can, if you ask them, I hope nobody ever asks them, they'll be happy to help you indulge in material life, considering it to be them to be God's gifts to us. So, because of the stool-like intelligence of a materialist, he even tries to, give the devotee this, that's why one shouldn't associate with them, because that association wears off and one becomes like them. One's mind becomes like that of a materialist. So, this is very necessary to only accept the bare necessity of life, or to follow the principles of the best use of a bad bargain. So just like, we're living very simply, it's like people walk into our ashrams and there's no beds or anything, no couches, nothing. We just sleep on a yoga mat and a sleeping bag, and that's really all we have. And that's all we really need. And so following those bare necessities of life and making the best use of this bad bargain is and more than that, being in Krishna consciousness is a perfection of life, that one doesn't endeavor for all these things. Otherwise we wouldn't be here if we had so much desire to have great wealth and all these things, because you can't have that within Krishna consciousness. So even those devotees who are married and who are grihastas and all that, they should also live like this. Not that you become a grihasta after your brahmachari days, and then you start acquiring and endeavoring for all this wealth, and you start getting a nice car and cut your hair all real nice and do all these unnecessary things and divert ourselves to indulge a little bit in sense gratification. One should take the austerity of self-realization. One should understand that this is the austerity of self-realization, just living very barely, really simply. What is the simplest way I can live? What is the thing that I don't need at all? Just throw out all those things that are just hanging around and that I haven't used in a few years. Throw it out. Throw all these things out. Live very simply so the mind is not agitated all the time. Attachment to all these things. So just like, Prabhupada explaining that it's absolutely necessary, and that one should live on God's gifts. So similarly, the farms that we have will live like this also, that they live on God's gifts, meaning the rain and the water come and one plants to the ground and completely depends on nature to provide. So the materialistic advancement of civilization is called the civilization of demons, which ultimately ends in wars and scarcity. The transcendentalist is specifically warned here within to be fixed in the mind, so that even if there is difficulty in plain living and high thinking, he'll not budge even an inch from his stark determination. For a transcendentalist, it is a suicidal policy to be intimately in touch with the sense gratifiers of the world, because such a policy will frustrate the ultimate gain of life. So one should be ready to take on the austerity, because it leads to the ultimate perfection. You see Rishabdev many times propounding this within his teachings. We see Sukadeva Goswami very heavy about this, as we'll see. So there is difficulty. It's not simple. It's like plain living, high thinking. It's not easy at all, because we've been inculcated with certain desires from our past. And those desires are deeply rooted in our heart to live very highly and think very plainly. But a devotee that has this vivyasya, this buddhi, fixed intelligence in the ultimate goal of life, independent of how difficult it is, how much the body gives suffering, he'll never leave devotional service. That's Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays that, Krishna, you do whatever you like with me, whether you embrace me or you trample me, that I will always remain at your lotus feet and always serving you. So that is the position of a devotee, that he independent of what his material situation is, whether comfort or discomfort, whether a great economy or he's poor, he's completely fixed, and he doesn't go to the materialist to satisfy those discomforts that he has. He feels that a materialist, a devotee, he feels that to be suicidal. I would rather commit suicide than give myself to the materialist and associate with these rascal people that completely downplay the ultimate goal of life, that completely look down upon the fact that one is endeavoring for self-realization. So it is important to develop this mood that I would rather die than associate with these people. I would rather die than run back into the fire of material life. I'd rather just leave my body. If I leave my body, like the brahmachari or the sannyasin, or brahmachari per se, he can die now, he can live, it's better for him to die now. Is that the, there's like the butcher, he should neither die, he should neither live. The saintly person, he may live or he may die. Why? Because it doesn't matter. In the next life, we'll continue to do what we do. If this body breaks down and dies, there's the bogi, the yogi, he should die immediately, because he's endeavoring in a certain way. There has to be a certain time and arrangement made for him. For a devotee, like even on our platform of this with so much mixed devotional service going on, because we've come up to a certain level, there's no fear, there should be no fear involved in leaving this body. And so one should, ultimately that's the fear of that, how will I survive? But that instinct of survival should be washed away with the purification of devotional service. And so a devotee thinks, even if I die, what's the problem? In my next life, I'll just continue what I'm doing. So it's like, actually there's no fear at hand, whether my body is troubling me or not. Okay, we can try to do the bare necessity to try to fix it and whatever, but we just go on in devotional service, tolerating that. And even amongst those pains of life, we can still experience the ecstasy of devotional service, be absorbed in that ecstasy. So Shukadeva Goswami met Maharaj Parikshit when the latter felt necessary for such meeting. It is a duty of a transcendent to help persons who desire real salvation and to support the cause of salvation. One might note that Shukadeva Goswami never met Maharaj Parikshit while he was ruling as a great king. For a transcendent, the mode of activity is explained in the next sloka. So we're doing the same thing. Go out and distribute books and give the duty. This is our duty, Prabhupada is saying, of a transcendental, is to help those persons. And in this case, they're not even desires of salvation. So that is the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That is the mercy of Advaita Acharya that you see in the first couple of verses when the Chaitanya Charitamrita starts, that Advaita Acharya felt great pain seeing the people, the lokas, the people of this world suffering in this fire of material existence. Therefore he invoked the Supreme Personality of Godhead to descend in this world and give a process by which everyone can become completely absorbed in this transcendental Krishna consciousness, this transcendental realm of self-realization. They can become completely absorbed. So we're doing the same thing. It is our duty, and especially is the desire of Srila Prabhupada. So we're trying to fulfill that desire. And so by doing this, we can not only perfect our lives, but perfect the lives of everyone else. I'm sorry, I ran out of time. I've already gone over time. So I'll end my class there. There will be no questions or comments. Okay, Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.